Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to keep looking at Return to Ravnica and we're going to move on and look at Rakdos Raid, which is the black-red deck. Let's have a look at the deck list. We've got 23 creatures, 5 enchantments, 3 sorceries, 2 instants, 2 artifacts, 25 land. We've got a mana curve off to the side there. Let's start looking at the cards in the deck. So, we'll start off by looking at the foil face rare, and it has the Rakdos keyword, or the new Rakdos keyword for this iteration of Rakdos, I suppose. This is the second time we've seen them. So Carnival Hellsteed. So 4 black and a red for a 5/4 with first strike and haste, which is just those stats I think are pretty good anyway. So it has the Rakdos keyword, which is Unleash. So Unleash is when you have this creature enter the battlefield, you can put a +1/+1 counter on it, but it can't block as long as it has a +1/+1 counter on it. So important to note that if you don't unleash it, if you don't come in with a +1/+1 counter, even if you put a +1/+1 counter on it later, it still won't be able to block. It's like it's not tied to that initial getting a counter. Just to sort of make that clear. So I guess aside from the creature, which I think is fine, it has haste, which is actually the thing I'm actually going to have a problem with the most with the other Rakdos cards. So Unleash, to me, feels a little underwhelming as a keyword. So what? For a black and a red, a 6/5 first strike haste would be that can't block would be super aggressive, maybe a little too expensive, but like a big threat, right? Because something with 6 power and first strike, would be hard to deal with. And there's this thing as well that I suppose the whole thing with Unleash is that you're getting something above curve with the downside of not being able to block, which is fine. I don't know. I just feel like Unleash could do like a bit more, as well, because I remember it felt like not. It felt a little underwhelming to play with, honestly, because I went to the Returns of Ravnica pre-release, and I think I ended up playing Rakdos, or at least had a decent number of Rakdos cards in my deck. Like I might not have gone full black-red, but I definitely had like a really strong red pool, so I had stuff like Bloodfray Giant and Gorehouse Chainwalker. And yeah, it was all right, I suppose. To get creatures that were then had higher power than you should be paying for them, but then the downside you can't block. I don't know. It feels a little underwhelming to me. Actually, what I think would have been perfect for Rakdos would have been either Bloodthirst, ironically, like the old Gruul keyword, or on the subject of Gruul, like the keyword that Gruul got in the next time we go back to Ravnica, when they got Riot, which was the it comes in either with haste or a +1/+1 counter, and I think that would have been actually really good for Rakdos. I think that would have helped cement them as being very aggressive. You could put it on small creatures and they either come in and swing straight away, or they're slightly bigger. I don't know. I would really like to hear what people's opinions on Unleash are, because I think it's okay. I think it's better than Hellbent, because Hellbent I don't think was like super well designed, because it required you putting yourself in like a really unfavorable game state, which is like having no cards in hand. You could argue that Unleash is kind of the same. Like, to get the most out of your cards, you're having to put yourself in an unfavorable game state, which is like you can't block. But it's at least you can play around with it. It's not just like, oh, your cards only get good when you have no cards in hand, I suppose. So yeah, would really like to hear what people's opinions on Unleash are. But anyway, so that's the foil face rare Carnival Hellsteed. Let's look at the others. So we're going to whiz through the other ones, because they're all basically cards with Unleash and various different like just powers and toughness, basically. So Bloodfray Giant, 2 colours and 2 red for a 4/3 with Trample and Unleash. This is like actually, I've just said we're going to rush through. This is actually another one where Unleash is actually sort of okay on it, because 2 colours and 2 red for a 4/3 Trample at this time was actually, I think, okay. And then if you unleash it, so it becomes a 5/4 with Trample, but then can't block for 4 mana. I mean, that's very aggressive. I think that's okay. Again, I feel like with Unleash they should also be getting haste as well. Like if it was coming with a +1/+1 counter and haste, but it can't block, or I don't know. You really tied it into like oh, what's the one I'm trying to think of? Like Blitz as well from like New Japan. I think Blitz would have been like a really good like Rakdos keyword. It comes in and maybe it's like slightly stronger or something, and it gets to attack straight away for like a cheaper cost, but then it dies at end of turn or something. Like that would have been good for Rakdos as well. I just don't know. I think they really hit Rakdos the next time we went to Ravnica when they got Spectacle. I think that is the perfect Rakdos keyword. And as we'll see, there's like a little they start to hint at it in this set. So we have two Gorehouse Chainwalkers as well. Just one colours, one red for a 2/1 with Unleash. So it can be a 3/2 for 2 mana. So that's, I mean, again, it's aggressively costed, but I don't I don't know if it's like worth removing the ability to block. But then if you're being so aggressive, then maybe it's not a big deal. A single Hellhole Flayer, one a black and a red for a 3/2 with Unleash. You can pay 2 cards, a black and a red, and sacrifice it, and does damage equal to its power to target player. So obviously this plays nicely. If you do unleash it, then it's obviously slightly stronger, so then the ability does more damage. Yeah, this is okay. I suppose that's the other thing I don't mind when the unleash like goes really well with what the creature is also doing. Like if it's just like a vanilla creature and like just unleashing is just like okay, it's just got a slightly higher power and toughness, but it can't block. If it synergizes with something else that the card's doing, like the Blood Freight Giant having trample, right, or the Carnival Hellsteed having first strike, or this thing like having an ability that cares about what its power is, like yeah, I think in that regard, when it's like that, I think Unleash is okay. I just think when it's like these other ones that we're looking at, it's probably not as impressive, I guess. So like Spawn of Rix Mardy is, I think, like not wonderful at all. So 3 a black and a red for 5/3, you can unleash it. So for 5 mana, you're playing for 5 mana and in 2 colors, you're getting a 6/4 that can't block. Like I don't know, is that worth 5 mana? I suppose it is. Then a big creature. It's like a big attacking threat, but I don't know. I don't know. I suppose it is like a skill testing thing of like if you were playing like when is the right time to when is the right time to unleash them, I suppose. I guess. So then we also have Rakdos Cackler. So this one I think is actually I've gone all this time about like, oh, I don't think Unleash is that good. This one I think is actually okay because it's a single hybrid mana for a 1/1 with Unleash. So this can be like a 2/2 for 1 mana, which is that's pretty good. The downside being it can't block, but like if you wanted to play this like turn 1 and have a 2/2 on turn 1 and attack on turn 2, yeah, that's fine. Like that's doing its job as kind of like a small, aggressively costed creature, I suppose. It's just when it's on the bigger creatures, I think like Spawn of Rix Mardy, I think it's a little, I don't know, it's a little wonky. I'm very conflicted about Unleash, basically. So the other rare deck is Critborn Horror. So 1 and 2 Rakdos Hybrid Mana for a 0/0 trample. Enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total life lost by your opponents this turn. So this is kind of what I was talking about in that we saw the seeds for Rakdos, what they'd eventually come, as in like caring about your opponent losing life. And I think I'm gonna say there was like maybe some sort of design articles at the time when they were talking about, they were floating the idea of it and calling it something like pain cast or something, where like, oh, if your opponent's taking damage this turn, this spell costs slightly less. So basically what we got with Spectacle. So there's Critborn Horror here, which is I think a perfectly fine card. Like you have a big swingy combat phase, and then you drop this main phase 2, and then it's then it can be a big finisher, right? Because you've done a bunch of damage, and then this comes in 3 mana for like a potentially really big trampler. I think it's pretty good. But yeah, you have this. You have the Rix Mardy Guild Mage, who we'll talk about in a second, and also you had this version of Rakdos in here, who cared, I think, about reducing casting costs for your cards if an opponent had lost life. It was stuff like that. So definitely the seeds were here for the the pain cast ability that became Spectacle. Anyway, Rix Mardy Guildmage, single black and red for a 2/2. You can pay 1 black and 1 red to give a blocking creature -1/-1 turn. That's pretty good, I think. You can pay 1 black and 1 red. A player who lost life this turn loses 1 life. So it's really nice to just sort of chip in an extra sort of like maybe 2 or 3 bits of life loss, maybe after your one of your creatures got through, or like you've done some burn to it. I think this is pretty good. I really like this as a guild mage. And then we have 2 Rakdos Shred Freak, so 2 Rakdos Hybrid Mana for a 2/1 with haste. Very straightforward. It's again, it's kind of doing what the deck wants to do, is like play, I guess, very cheap, aggressive, fast creatures and just kind of like win through combat as quickly as possible, I suppose. Um, so then we have a single Bellows Lizard, 1 red man for a 1/1, has kind of expensive fire breathing. I mean, it's fine as a 1 drop, I suppose, with fire breathing. I guess it's okay. Um, but yeah, I definitely think there's better choices it could have been. A single Minotaur Aggressor who is a huge 6/1 red mana for a 6/2 with first strike and haste. So obviously, like big, expensive, 7 mana exactly, but I don't know 6/2 with first strike and haste is also six power, and first strike is obviously again like pretty threatening. It has haste, so it can swing straight away. I don't know. This is kind of like I guess the curve topper, I suppose, and it's probably greedy of me to want this to have trample as well, but yeah, I don't know if this really fits in here because I think you kind of want the game to be over by the time you can get to 7 mana, but obviously, these kind of precon style games would maybe not be as optimized. I suppose the game might go on longer, so I suppose it is good to have like just a one big creature like this in the deck. I suppose, and it's all right. It could be worse. It is just obviously very expensive. And now the most confusing card in the whole deck, Sewer Shambler. So 2 and a black for a 2/1 with Swamp Walk and Scavenge. And what's Scavenge, you might ask? Well, Scavenge is the Golgari keyword, which I'll talk about in the next video when we look at the Golgari deck. Why is this card in this deck? Like, I know, like, there's no kind of hard and fast rules. Like, oh, okay, like we're only going to use Rakdos cards. It's not like this is the Rakdos theme deck, and they're not called theme decks anymore. But it's such a weird inclusion because there was obviously like better choices for this. Like even that were Rakdos affiliated. At this kind of mana cost and everything. It's super weird why this card is in this deck. Honestly, I'd like to think maybe it was a going back to what Legions, we had the Elf deck, which had a single Snarling Underrack in it. So I'd like to think it was just some sort of like maybe like print error, and it was just I don't know, the deck list got through and just like okay, well we'll put Sewer Shambler into it. I suppose that's what it says on the the file or whatever. But yeah, it's super weird why it's in this deck. I'll just quickly talk about the card anyway. So turn it back for a 2/1 with Swamp Walk. Also super weird it has Swamp Walk because this was I think this is the last printed creature, at least within a main set, not counting like a supplemental set like Command or anything, that has Swamp Walk because this was at the point in the game where they were definitely phasing out land walk abilities. So it was very weird to get a land walking creature at this time. Like it definitely felt odd. Actually, I think in the next set when we get the Demir, there it's either in Gatecrash or Dragon's Maze, but that's the last printed card that has Forest Walk, or like the last we get again within a main set. So they're definitely really aggressively phasing out land walk abilities, which I think is a good choice. I don't think land walk is a particularly good ability. It has scavenge, so if it's in your graveyard, you can pay its scavenge cost, you exile it, and you put a number of +1/+1 counters on a creature equal to this card's power. So in this case, 2. So in that regard, it actually has some sort of synergy. If you play a small creature that like you maybe need to block in the early stages of the game because maybe you don't want to unleash it, and then at least later on you could then do this and then buff it up and then it's slightly bigger. And I don't know, I'm just desperately trying to find an excuse why this might be included. And then a bunch of M13 kind of filler here. So single Ravenous Rats, seen these loads of times in the past. It's actually been a while since we've had them in a deck. 1 in the black just for a 1/1 when they enter the battlefield. An opponent discards a creature, discards a card, which is fine. 3 Tormented Souls, this is actually quite nice. 1 black mana for a 1/1 that can't block and is unblockable, so just kind of keeps sneaking through and doing damage. Yep, it's fine. 2 Zombie Goliath, who keeps returning to haunt these precons. It's just 5 mana for a 4/3. It's just obviously not very good. And then 2 Canyon Minotaurs, 3 in a red for a 3/3 Hill Giant, isn't it? It's fine. It's just sort of filler. Again, it's annoying because there was definitely better cards within M13 as a set, like at common, that you could have put in here instead. But again, I suppose it's an introductory product. We've got to have maybe some vanilla creatures, I suppose. So moving on to non-creature spells, we have a single Deviant Glee. So 1 black mana, aura goes on a creature. In charge creature gets +2/+1, so it's basically Unholy Strength. With an extra bonus, gets +2/+1. It has 1 red. This creature gains trample and turn. So this is it's nice and cheap. You can put this on like one of your unleashed creatures, a cheap unleashed creature, say like the Cackler. What'd be really nice, play the Cackler turn 1, turn 2 this, attack with, the 4/3 Cackler. I suppose that's a potential play. Would have actually liked to see more of these in the deck, honestly, like just to, a really cheap kind of buff spell for like the small creatures that you're playing, and like really emphasize their kind of power so they can attack and do as much damage as possible, win the game as quickly as possible, I suppose. A single Shrieking Affliction. This is actually quite a funny card, I think. I don't think it's great in this deck. I really don't understand why it's in this deck. So a single black mana enchantment. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, if they have 1 or fewer cards in hand, they lose 3 life. So I say I don't really know what this. You've got, I guess, a few discard effects in here, but like it's not the theme of the deck. It's if any, you got the Ravenous Rats, you might have a few other non-creature spells. We'll get to them that make opponents discard, but it's not like the theme of the deck. And like you've only got 1 of these. What's that going to do? What I find really funny is that this this punishes original Rakdos. If they were playing Hellbent and obviously get down to 0 cards, that's obviously 1 or fewer cards in hand, then they would lose life to this. I just find that really funny. It's like the anti-Rakdos card in a Rakdos deck, I suppose. So yeah, we have a single Augur Spree, so 1 a black and a red to give a creature +4/-4 until end of turn. We sort of see these a lot in kind of black, these kind of like big increased power but decreased toughness spells, so it can serve as kind of as a combat trick in one way, for one side or the other, I suppose, if you want to sneak in extra damage or kill an X4 or something. These are fine, I think. Would have again liked maybe like another one of these. A single Assassin Strike, really expensive at 4 and 2 black, and sorcery speed as well to destroy target creature. And it's uncommon as well, which is insane. Like for reference, you had Murder literally in the previous set in M13, which was half the cost at instant speed. And the only upside here is its controller discards a card. Like so, you're paying like an extra 3 mana just to make someone discard a card, and if you're playing this like turn 6. There's a chance they might not have anything kind of it might be not that disruptive a play to them because they've probably played everything by then. But hey, it combos with the black enchantment that makes them lose life if they have fewer cards. This is like I think this is just a bad card. It's so expensive. A single Traitorous Instinct, so 3 in a red. It's active treason but gives +2/+0. So just 1 more expensive for that power boost. I think this is okay. Yeah. A single Blood Reckoning, so 3 in a black enchantment. Whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker control, that creature's control loses 1 life. This actually I think has a nice little strategy actually with the unleash, because if you're unleashing your things, they can't block. So your opponent's like, well, I can attack then, but if you have this, then they're going to lose life when they attack, I suppose, maybe. So it can serve as maybe a bit of a deterrent, possibly, or maybe I'm just being a bit generous with that, I suppose. 2 Crippling Blights, a lot of enchantments actually in this deck, weirdly. 2 Crippling Blights, 1 black mana. Aura goes on a creature, enchanted creature, it's -1/-1 and can't block. So I'm going to unleash your creatures as well, but make them worse. Kills an X1 or at least removes a blocker out of the way, and it's nice and cheap. So could do worse, I suppose. Then a single Cower and Fear, creature your opponents control get -1/-1 turn. Instant speed at 3 mana. I think this is actually okay. It's fine. Not much to say about that. Single Mind Rot, 2 in the black to make player discards 2 cards. So there we go. Like it just again like very minor discard theme. I just really don't understand it. Like just have more kill spells. You're in black and red. Have removal spells. That's like what we're meant to be doing. Clear the board so you can get through with creatures. And then 2 Rakdos Key Runes, so 3 mana for an artifact. Taps to give you black or red, and you pay 1 black and 1 red to turn it into a 3/1 black and red devil artifact creature with first strike on turn, which is actually pretty beefy. I think it makes it one of the stronger of the Key Runes, because just something with 3 power and first strike can be quite troublesome to deal with. Either blocking or on the attack. Pretty tough to deal with. Then a single Gilgate and 12 Mountains and 12 Swamps. So, what could have been? So, let's think about this. So, I'm going to go back to the Sewer Shambler. I'm convinced the Sewer Shambler being in the deck is a mistake. What I would like to think it would have been just like literally any other unleashed creature. So, Thrill Kill Assassin is here really to represent all the other unleashed creatures that could have been here. It's like Thrill Kill Assassin, which is 1 in the black for a 1/2 with Death Touch Unleash, which is pretty good, I think. Or the Splatter Thug. Really surprised Splatter Thug isn't it here, because that's 2 in a red for a 2/2 with first strike, and you can unleash it, so it becomes a 3/3 with first strike for 3 mana, which would be pretty good. And that's at common, so you definitely could have had that instead of like the Canyon Minotaur. Like, I don't know. So alternate rares maybe. So Carnival Hellsteed I think is okay. The Cryptborn Horror maybe. I think it's all right. Um, maybe I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, the Carnival Hellsteed is okay as well. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I'm not married to any of the to either of the rares in this deck. So just other potentials here. We could have had Chaos Imps, which is 4 and 2 red for a 6/5 with flying and unleash, and it has trample as long as it has a +1/+1 counter on it. Actually, this is another thing that I kind of wish Unleash had done, or like the Rakdos cards have done, like gaining extra keywords or abilities if they had counters on them. So that's like more incentive to unleash them, I suppose, or gives them extra benefit. Maybe I don't know. Maybe, as I said, very conflicted about Unleash. And another alternate rare, Havoc Festival. So actually, I do think this is a rare in the other Rakdos deck in Dragon's Maze, actually. But yeah, 4, a black and a red, so really expensive enchantment. But players can't gain life. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, they lose half their life. So this is just like a ticking clock to eventually end the game, I suppose. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right, I suppose. But yeah, I say I'm not particularly married to any of the rares. I just wish it had more kind of like unleashed creatures and more like removal, like just some murders and stuff like that would have gone a long way, I think, in this deck. So I think it has, I don't know, a bit of potential, but like I think it is kind of let down by some of the card choices in here. Like, yeah, like it doesn't dedicate a lot of room to the discard theme, which actually in that case means there definitely shouldn't even be a discard theme to it. Like you've got the was it the Shrieking Affliction, the Mind Rot, a few other discard cards. Just like no, just like some good cheap removal spells. Like, like in M13, I say we had Murder, we had Searing Spear, like just stuff like that, stuff that clears the board for these cheap aggressive creatures to get through, and then like if you kill everything, then you'd have to worry about blocking anyway, I suppose. So yeah, maybe a little bit disappointed in this one. Unfortunately, I think the other Rakdos one, in Dragon's Maze is actually not is actually worse than this. But as I say, we'll cover that when we get to it. But I would love to hear what people think about this one. If you have any thoughts or stories or comments or opinions about this deck or like any of the cards in it, really would be interested to hear what people think about Unleash, because I am very conflicted in what I think about it as a keyword and how effective it is. But yeah, stick a comment below if you got anything to say about any of those. And then yeah, I'll be back next time to look at another Return to Ravnica intro pack. But until then, thanks for watching, listening, and have a great day.